So language and culture. Language is the crucible of culture. Everything in the culture is embedded in the language. The terms, the words in a language, they all reflect the cultural processes of a particular people group that still hangs on to that particular language. As long as language shift has not happened, then the traditional language is the crucible for that culture. So the terms in a language illustrates the cultural processes undertaken by that because the culture is embedded in the traditional language connected to that particular group, not unless they have shifted language. So, example, in Tagalog culture, we have different words that reflect unique cultural icons, cultural processes, cultural ways of thinking. So we have lihi, something related to gestation, tampo, related to emotions, lambing, which might be similar to affection, but still has unique differences. Igil, pasalubong, basta, naman, papa, ikon, pambahay, alimpungat, umay, baduy, kilig, kaalibadbaran, lamay, which is translated as big, but does not capture all the cultural processes in our world. Then we have pasma, which is untranslatable in English. We also have so, which is enchantment, but not exactly. Okay, all these Tagalog terms reflect the processes, the ways of thinking in Tagalog. Because as we said, language is the crucible of culture. Culture is embedded in the language. All the things we do in a culture are reflected in a language. Of course, now it's possible that uh, people do something, but they don't have a word for it. Like the Oka Indians in South America, they commit revenge, but they don't have a word for revenge. Or it could be too ubiquitous that it doesn't have a term. The example given by my teacher in anthropological linguistics is the term heterosexual. Many cultures don't have a word for heterosexual because it's too ubiquitous. So the terms in a language reflect the cultural processes, the ways of thinking, the concepts and ideas related to that. That's why Michael Tan came up with came up with a book titled Visiting Mind. He said that such practices and ideas such as Usok and Pasma and Kula, all of these have social functions. Take, for example, the superstition that a woman who doesn't look you in the eye when you meet them on the street, she might be a witch. So the idea is it promotes social interaction to the point that if you don't socialize, you are you're treated as a pariah. Okay, so according to Michael Tan, Sokpasma and Kulam, which seem to be useless ideas, actually have their purposes. Okay, can you give an example of a word that reflects uh, Tagalog culture, or maybe a word in your own culture? Try to explain to us. So, for example, dungaw. Dungaw is not in Tagalog, it's Ilocano, and it represents the cultural processes related to funerals and faiths and mourning. Okay, can you give words like any words? Who are Visayans here? Who are Ilocanos? Who have so Rosel, what is Gaba?
It's Gaba, sir. Yeah.
Gaba.
I'm not sure of where it originated from, but I always hear my mom say it. Um, it's usually, from what I understand, it usually pertains to something related to malas po. So, for example, if you don't finish your food in your plate, magagabaan tayo, and things like that.
Thank you very much, Rosel. And somebody raise your hand. Clyde, Ilocano, Bari-Bari Apo, tabi-tabi po. But I'm sure, Bari-Bari Apo, I'm sure it has a different meaning, a unique meaning in Ilocano. Okay? What is Kaulumol,
It's from Hiligaynon po,
which
language
is, which
from
means,
which means po ano, parang, you say that, parang it means nakakainis ka, kaulumol simo. Sometimes we tend to say that when it's dark in order for us to prevent being under the spell of any spirits.
okay, thank you very much. So it has cultural, it's related to cultural ways of thinking. Okay, thank you very much, Jericho. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, mali pala ang spelling ko. So, 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 thank you very much for to those who shared. Okay, so in fact, as similar words in two different languages may actually mean different things. So, for example, uh, Himagsikan versus revolution, bayan versus revolution. According to Seyo Salazar, in the article Wika ng Himagsikan, Lingwahe ng Revolusyon, mga suliranin ng pagpapakahulugan sa pagtutulong ng bansa. According to him, there's a difference between Himagsikan and Revolution. Although they refer to similar processes, their ideas are different. Revolution is like revolving, it's like turning. The idea is replacing one government with another through violent means. It's somewhat similar to Himagsikan. But Himagsikan, according to my teacher in UP, is actually different. Himagsikan comes from the word magsik, magsik. And magsik is so Himagsikan is an outpouring of one's anger. That's the whole idea. It's not so much as replacing one government with another through an uprising. The idea is to pour out your anger. That's the idea of himagsikan. And according to my teacher in UP, uh, himagsikan is different in many aspects of revolution. In revolution, you plan, you think, you think in terms of numbers. Do you have enough people to fight? But according to Ibn Sigan, you don't plan so much. You don't think in terms of whether you will succeed or not. It's all about pouring out your anger. So Himagsikan has to do with emotions. Although they look the same, they sound the same, they seem to be the same, they're actually different. Another one is Bayan versus Nation. Nation is actually a term used after the 30 Years' War in Europe. And so it came to be the nations of citizens and all that. But Bayan is different. In fact, Bayan has fluid meaning. Bayan, um, Bayan could be the difference between the center of the town as opposed to the outskirts of the town or the forested areas of the town. So there's a difference between Bayan and Barrio. Bayan is the town center. Barrio would be the forested or field places in which people live. Bayan could mean the Lalawigan, the province, or it could mean a country itself, or it could mean the people, it could mean the land. So bayan has a very fluid meaning in contrast to nacion. By the way, according to Zeus Salazar, Himagsikan and bayan were used by the Katipuneros under Andres Bonifacio. Well, it reflects a really indigenous way of thinking. In contrast, revolution and nation were used by Emilio Aguinaldo and his followers. And it shows how Emilio Aguinaldo and his followers were very much Western oriented, in contrast to Andres Bonifacio, who was very indigenous in his way of thinking. By the way, class, this article, Wika na Himagsikan Lingwahe ng Revolusyon, this is found in the same book as Kapwa, A Core Concept of Filipino Social Psychology, which you are going to read. I'm not requiring you to read this in Wika na Himagsikan Lingwahe ng Revolusyon, but you may want to read if you want to read it. Okay, what I'm what I will be asking you to read is Kapwa, Core Concept in Filipino Social Psychology, among many other meanings. Okay, so class, in a culture, there are terms that reflect that culture, but there are terms which are more central, more widespread, more developed, and more encompassing of a culture. These are keywords. Okay, now you have a reading assignment. You will read Anna Wierzbicka, Anna Wierzbicka's book, Understanding Words, Understanding Culture through their keywords. Okay, Understanding Cultures through their keywords by Anna Wierzbicka, which is found in LNS. Now let me share with you uh, some keywords in Tagalog. Loob, kapwa, and hiya. These are some of the keywords we have in Tagalog. Let's start out with loob. One characteristic of a keyword is that it can produce a lot of meaningful derivatives. Derivative words that have concepts that reflect particular concept or idea. If you translate all these words under loob, you would find different words. Okay. For example, I'll ask you to translate into English. Abby Joy. Can you translate kaloob into English? Do we have Abby Joy?
Hello, sir.
Yes, kaloob in English.
Um, is it gift, sir?
Thank you, Abby. So it's gift. The idea, why is it kaloob? The idea is that it's something that comes from your heart. Yes, J Lord, it could also be offering. Very good. The idea is that it's coming from your inner personality. Okay. How about kalooban? Anyone? Can anyone translate this into English? Please, kalooban into English. Kalooban. Very good, Jessica and Jenny. Will, kalooban. The idea, your volition, your will. Okay. Now, something related to kalooban is saloobin. Saloobin is what in English? Sentiment. Very good, J Lord. Sentiment. The sentiments of your heart. Okay. Things that are in you, your saloobin. Okay. Then we have masama ang loob. Well, masama ang loob could mean negative feeling towards somebody or towards something that happened. Okay, masamang upset. Very good, Eliza. That's a nice, but not exactly translation. Okay, all these words uh, they have English equivalents, but they have a concept different from English. Okay, grudge, Marcy. Yes, grudge. Okay, so like kaloob, it's gift, but the idea is that it comes from yourself. Kaloob. So a bribe is not a kaloob. Okay, a bribe is not a kaloob. Okay, what is bribe in Tagalog? Bribe in Tagalog. Lagay. Suhol, very good, Jill. Suhol or lagay. So kalooban is not a gift. Kalooban is not lagay. Kaloob is not lagay. It is not a bribe because it's something that comes from you. It's something sincere, something thoughtful. Okay, that's kaloob. Notice they have English translations, but the English translations do not really reflect the concepts of these words. Okay? Now, in contrast to masamang loob, we have masamang loob. What is masamang loob? What is a masamang loob? Very good, Antonio Charles Matthew. Okay, criminal, bad people. Very good. Okay, the idea is not so much as what you did, but your personality. It's not so much as what you did, but your predisposition. Criminal is somebody who committed a crime. But in masamang loob, it's not so much as the crime. It's your predisposition. Okay? Then we also have lamang loob. Lamang loob, any translation for lamang loob? The insides, the innards, and the internal organs. Okay, thank you. Now, how about nilooban? Yes, entrails, very good. Robbery, ransack. Okay, the idea is somebody goes inside your house and takes the things from inside your house. Okay, so robbery in English could happen on the highway. Okay, break in, that's nice. Or thievery. Okay, now robbery can happen in the house, and thievery could happen when you have your bag and or somebody took your cell phone. But nilooban, the idea is somebody goes inside your house. Okay. Then we have the word looban. Okay, what is looban? Compound, The alley, particularly which part? The compound, which part of the alley? The inner alley, yes. Yes, it could be the end part. The idea, the central part. The idea is courtyard, yes, that's the interior. The interior part. Okay. And then we have finally another word, kapalagayan. Can you translate this into English? Yes, it's somebody you are at ease with. Very good. Okay. I'm not really sure about inner peace. Kapalagayan loob. You have the word ka there. Ka. Kapalagayan loob. Somebody with whom you are what? You have mutual understanding. You have not so much as a companion, but there's something about that person. You're comfortable with that person. You're close with that person. Okay, yes, quite comfortable with somebody that you don't need to put your guard up. Exactly, not an acquaintance. An acquaintance, when you have an acquaintance, you put your guard up. But yes, like what Abby Joy said, comfortable with somebody you are comfortable with. Notice, class, that the word co-op has produced a different variety of words that has a web of meaning. It's widespread, okay, covering so many areas as you see when you translate it in English. From gift to criminal to bosom friend, confidant, yes, Marcy, confidant. So you have the word loob has produced different other words that that cover different meaning areas from gift to criminal to interior to a bosom friend. Okay, so that's the idea of a keyword. Okay, one aspect of a keyword is that it can produce derivatives that cover different areas, wide areas. Okay. Then we have Kapwa, and I will ask you to read this article. This will be part of your assessment. No need for to submit notes, but this will be part of your assessment. Okay. The title is Kapwa, a core concept in Filipino social psychology. It's part of a book edited by Atoy Navarro and Flordelisa Lagmayo Bolante. Lagmayo Bolante, where titled Mga Babasahin sa Accompany po ng Pilipino. Okay, it's in English, by the way. It's written in English, so it will be easy for you to read. The other article by Zeus Salazar, it's in Filipino, so you might find it difficult. Okay, so the kapwa is also a core concept. It's also a keyword. The idea is that kapwa, kapwa covers a lot of ways of thinking. It covers a wide swathe of human action, relation, and thought. Okay. In relation to that, Enriquez quoted somebody who came up with several levels of interaction as described by Filipinos. Different kinds of interaction or different levels in terms of intimacy and seriousness related to kapwa. So all these interactions require a certain level of pakikipagkapwa. Again, all these levels of interaction require a different level of pakikipagkapwa. Like pakikisalumuha. Okay, probably pakikisalumuha is the kind you would use when you ride a jeepney, when you meet some people at a restaurant. Very simple interaction. Okay. And then you have pakikitungo. It's more of transactional, how civil you are with somebody. Kamusta ba pakikitungo niya sa iyo? Okay, so how civil you are with a person, pakikilahok, participating with, pakikibagay. This is a word that I'd like to elaborate on. This is quite different from many cultures. This is something that Filipinos have that foreigners need to understand. Because pakikibagay is modifying your behavior when you're with somebody. Modifying your behavior when you're with somebody. You don't need to be like that the rest of your life, or even when you are not with that person, but you need to be like that. Okay? I'm sure you have those of you who um, who had experience living in a dormitory with a roommate or housemate. You have experienced pakikibagay. And those of you who attend have roommates. Okay, those of you who have roommates who have tried living in a dormitory, could you raise your hand, please? Let me see those hands. We have Clyde, somebody, Liza. I didn't read all your names because you're not really that clear. Okay, but Clyde, John Nicholson, William, Jessica, Antonio, Alexandra, Chelsea. So, uh, thank you very much, Maurice. You may lower your hands. You're the newbie, which means that ikaw yung makikibagay sa kanila. Okay? They're not the ones who will adjust to you. You are the one who will adjust to them. You need to adjust your behavior to them. Okay? Like maybe some of them don't like towels being left in the room. Or they really hate it when you put your towel on their bed or on the sofa. Okay? Now, a classic example I give, yes, not really mutual adjustments. Yes, adjustment, but mainly adjustment from the part of the one who is the newbie. Okay? So, adjustment yan, pero ikaw yung mag-a-adjust, hindi talaga sila. Sila yung kailangan mong pakibagayan. Okay? Ikaw yung nakikibagay kasi ikaw yung pinakabago or ikaw yung pinakabata. Okay? So, classic example dyan, class, sa UP, ano? Ewan ko kung ginagawa nyo to sa PNU, bibili kayo ng pansik, naka-plastic, tapos, wala kayong kutsara, tinidor, or plato. Gagawin niyo, kakagating niyo yung plastic, tapos kakainin niyo yung plastic ng ganon. Ano? May mga tao na, sa UP, in UP, there are students who don't do it, like doing that. They have social etiquette. It's against their social etiquette to do something like that. So on their own, they would get spoon and fork and plate and put the pancit there, and they would eat it. They don't like doing that. Kakagatin yung plastic, kakain mula doon. But when they are with their brothers and sisters, I don't know if you call your org mates as brothers and sisters. Pag sinabi, brad ko yan, ay sis ko yan, it means you belong to the same organization. Ay, brad ko yan sa mountaineering club. Ah, brad ko yan sa fraternity namin. Okay, so brothers and sisters. And when you're with them, and they act like that, so ugali nila yung kinakagat yung plastic, kinakain yung pansit. Even if it's against your social etiquette, you don't like doing that, you will do that. Not because it's your own way of it's not your lifestyle. Not because it's your lifestyle. Hindi dahil sa ugali mo talaga yun. Kundi ugali nila yun at dahil nakikibagay ka, you act like them. Now, if you don't act like them, then you would be considered a snob, aloof, or antisocial. Okay, pakikibagay. So nag-a-adjust ka, no? And then you also have pakikisama, being along with, okay? Like if you have a neighbor and they're loud, it's somebody's birthday, they're singing aloud, and one neighbor complains, ingay nila, they will apologize, but they would say by themselves, they say, grabe to, walang pakikisama. Walang pakisama to. Or, or you're a bunch of friends, you decide to watch a movie or do something, and one of you doesn't go along. Kayo na lang, okay, itong gagawin ko or something. Grabe naman to, walang pakisama, oh. Okay, so that's pakikisama. Okay? And then we have pakipagpalagayang loob. Kapalagayang loob po siya. You are comfortable with that person. Then you have pakikisangkot, getting involved with. This is close action. Okay? And then you have pakikisa. So all these ways of social interaction require a certain level of pakipagkapwa. That's why we say kapwa is a core concept in Filipino social psychology. And you're going to read this. I hope it will enrich your way of thinking. And this will all have an impact on the way you teach English. Okay, another one is hiya. Class, when foreigners try to interpret hiya, oftentimes they get it wrong. Hiya for them is shame, but in fact, it's not really shame. Okay, it's actually a sense of propriety, and anything that you do against in relation to hiya has different words and terminologies. Okay, um, hiya, like loob, has a lot of derivatives, and um, all these derivatives cover different areas, a wide area of meaning, like nahihiya. Nahihiya, you see? Or nahihiya. Okay? So, nahihiya is different from nakakahiya. Nakakahiya has to do with something that you're doing that might not be proper. Okay? Nahihiya is you don't want to do something because it might not be perceived as being proper. Then napahiya, humiliated, napahiya because it showed, somehow appeared that you did something not proper, inappropriate. And then you have the word term walang hiya, somebody who doesn't have a sense of propriety. Okay, walang hiya. Okay, actually, class, I don't need to elaborate this with you because you all understand this. How about winalang hiya? Now, winalang hiya refers to doing something very bad to a person, maybe rape or murder. Okay, winalang hiya yung tao. Okay, another one is kahiya-hiya. I'm not sure the difference between kahiya-hiya and nakakahiya. Okay, maybe we could study this. Okay, so these are a few of the key terms in Tagalog. On Thursday class, you will listen. I'd like to ask you to participate in the report of Miss Rainia Trillo from 4-1 regarding key terms in Japanese. Okay, and you will use the same link that we are using right now. The same link that you are using right now is the same link that you will use to watch the report. It's at 9 a.m. Okay, and after 9 a.m., we will no longer have a class on Thursday afternoon. Okay, I hope you understand that. You will participate 9 a.m. and then in the afternoon we will not have a class. So I hope you understand that. Okay. Now another way in which language provides insight into a culture is the use of a curse. How do you curse people? Paano mo sila minutulungan? Okay. There are differences. I'm sure you know the differences between cursing somebody in English and cursing somebody in Filipino. They use different terms, they use different ideas. Okay? Like, fuck you. Okay? It's funny in Tagalog, you know? Kantutin ka. It doesn't produce the same kind of anger. Uh, I don't think if you say to somebody kantutin ka, that would anger them. Maybe it would even make them laugh. Okay? But if you say fuck you in English, or even somebody who understands, it would really anger them. Okay? That shows an insight into what we value, what we consider to be sacred, what we consider to be abhorrent. Okay? Um, like in Filipino, when you curse, for example, some people would say, "Tinama, pick." Okay? You got hit by lightning. If you translate it into English, it doesn't sound like curse. But in Tagalog, it's very, very clear. And it's even clear, another curse in Tagalog even is, anak ka ng tatay mo. You're the child of your father. Anak ka ng tatay mo. Now, if you say it in English, you're the child of your father. It's not really powerful as a curse. But in Filipino, it's really offending. It could be very offending. Okay? So, anak ka ng nanay mo, anak ka ng tatay. I'm not sure, class, if you are familiar with buwa ka ng ina, buwa ka ng ina. Can you raise your hand if you're familiar with that curse in Tagalog? Buwa ka ng ina mo. Okay. Buwa, class, means suka. You are the vomit of your mother. Buwa ka ng ina mo. Okay, and there are many other curses, okay, in Filipino that if you translate them into English, it doesn't have the same impact. The same thing with if you translate to Tagalog English terms, English curses, they may not have the same uh, effect. Okay, what is common in many countries has to do with your mother's vagina. Class, when I looked at the number of curses, I saw more references to a mother and her vagina than to a father and his balls. Mas maraming mura tungkol sa nanay at sa kanyang vagina. Maybe it's because we hold it more sacred. You know? Maybe it reflects in our case in the Philippines. Uh, it shows how matriocentric we are. Okay? It shows how matriocentric we are. Like, putang ina mo, uh, your mother is a prostitute in English doesn't sound like powerful. It's not a powerful curse. Although some people might get offended, but not as a curse. Okay? They'll just say, "Oh, my mother is not." But in Filipino, it has an automatic impact. By the way, class, Zeus Salazar, the author of the article that I showed you, told us in UP that traditionally daw, before the spiders came, it was more or less, the curse was more as puking ina mo, pukin ng ina mo, or puking ina mo. Okay? Not as much as putang ina mo. It could be your mother's vagina. Or in my dad's cursing, it was more of buray ni apo. I wonder if there are any Bicolano here. May Bicol ba dito? May Bicolano ba dito? I wonder. But my dad was Bicolano, that was his curse. Ano? Buray ni apo mo, buray ni apo. Which is your grandmother's vagina. Your grandmother's vagina. Okay. So that's the curse, and it reflects what we hold to be valuable, what we hold to be sacred. Yes, Marcy, that's what my Bicolano father would curse. Okay, uh, it reflects a culture's values, what they consider to be abhorrent, what they consider to be sacred. Okay, now let me share with you some examples of curses. Okay, like here's the curse in German. Heaven, thunder, weather. Himmel, Donner, Wetter. So heaven, thunder, weather. If you say that, it doesn't sound like a curse. But if you say it in German, especially with German speaking people, it's a curse. Okay. And then here's in number three, which is Yiddish, which is a Semitic language. Guy koken often yon, ocean in the ocean. The idea is you will drown there, go and drown there. Okay, so it has to do with the ocean. Okay, and then here's number five. Number five, Jabiz Jeze, which is Polish for you fuck hedgehogs. Okay, imagine if you use that as a curse word. You fuck hedgehogs. So it doesn't have that much of an impact. Okay, but in Polish, if you say that, that's really offensive. And it has to do with the hedgehogs. So notice uh, how it's related to him. Maybe hedgehogs are abhorrent to Poles, okay, or something that uh, maybe something abhorrent or something despicable. To the point that if you do that, you're really despicable too. Okay, so it gives us an insight into what people consider to be abhorrent or even sacred. In number seven, you have Umu Kapata, which is son of an owl. Okay, it reflects Hindu culture where owls are considered lazy and stupid. So in English, it would just be perplexing. Okay, so you're actually the connotation of owl in English speaking societies is somebody bright. Okay, now here's something in number eight, Japanese. You have the word kisama, which is you. It just means you, but it's a rude way of saying you. Imagine how polite the Japanese is. Just a way of just saying you in a rude way is already a form of insult or curse. Okay, but just saying you in a rude way. Okay. If you're familiar with number 10, leche has something to do with milk or maybe it has to do with semen. Okay, with semen. Okay, so leche is a reference to semen. Okay, in Afrikaans, it's suck on my hemorrhoids and wait for better days. So imagine hemorrhoids. Okay, in Japanese, number 12, tofu no kado ni atama wo utsukete shine. Hit your head on a corner of tofu and die. So it has to do with tofu, okay, with their culture. Okay, in Hebrew, go masturbate on a dog's picture. So you see the relationship to culture there. They consider dogs as traditionally as despicable creatures. Okay, in Gaelic, number 14, you have uh, I'm not sure how you can pronounce it, but it's a shroud on you, a patka. Panka. Imagine that that's a curse to them. Okay, so it's a reflection of people's culture. Cursing is a reflection of people's culture. Okay, so again, uh, so curses provide an insight into a culture's values, uh, what they consider to be detestable, what they consider to be sacred. Okay, so by insulting what's sacred to you, it's a form of cursing. Okay, so in fact, class, some words which may be normal in one Hispanic country may be a bad word in another. I have uh, I have a teacher, and I had a teacher, and he once said that he was conducting an international lecture on language survey, and the people his students specifically were from Spanish speaking countries, because although he was American, he could speak Spanish, and he had uh, an international class composed of people from different nationalities, from from different Hispanic countries, and he said that it's possible that in one country, in one Hispanic country, one word might be completely normal, but in another Hispanic country, it could be a bad word. Okay, so it's another explanation and another insight into the fact that words reflect a particular culture. Okay, imagine they're all Spanish speaking, and yet some words might be completely okay in one country but negative in another country. Okay, then we also have taboo words class. Taboo words. These are words that you're not allowed to talk about. It reflects the kind of thinking about a particular word. For example, in Jewish culture, you cannot say the name of God. You cannot say the name of God, which is YHWH. It's called the Tetragrammaton. And when Jewish readers read aloud the Bible, and they encounter that word for God, they use another word, which is Adonai. Instead of saying Yahweh, they would say Adonai. Okay? They would not use the word Yahweh, they would use the word Adonai. So it shows the kind of reverence Jewish culture has for their monotheistic God, for their one God. They do not they do not even pronounce his name, to the point that it has actually been forgotten how to pronounce it. Okay, the Yahweh is just an approximation, but it has been forgotten. Okay, so it reflects the respect for God. Takpan culture, a person cannot say the name of his or her father. Bawal cannot pronounce the name of his father. So it reflects the kind of culture that they have toward their father or maybe something else. Now, in the Andaman Islands near India, there are cultures there in which the name of a baby cannot be spoken before and right after birth. The names of the bride and groom may not be spoken before and right after the wedding. The name of a dead person cannot be named during the period of mourning, and all other changes of status. Okay, so maybe in your case, class, when you're graduating already, you're not supposed to mention each other's names because there's a change of status. It's about to happen. Okay, so that's the idea in the Andaman Islands. Also, in some other cultures, a person may not reveal his or her name. Okay, because an evil spirit might hear it and the person will. Okay, so taboo words also show insight into a particular uh, cultural processes, ways of thinking, what they hold to be sacred, to their values. Okay, so these are taboo words. I wonder, class, if you know this story, Rumpelstiltskin. Can you raise your hand if you're familiar with this story? I, anyone else? Rumpelstiltskin. So, okay. So Rumpelstiltskin is the story of a woman who was about to be married to a prince, but she's required to convert hay into gold, to spin it, to weave it into gold. But of course, she couldn't do it, so she asked the help of an elf whose name she doesn't know. And the elf was able to go through, and the elf provided gold for the woman. So the woman was able to marry the prince. But then the condition for the elf to do what she wanted was her baby would be given to the elf. The elf would get her baby. Okay, and so when the woman got married to a prince and they had a child, the elf came to get his end of the bargain. And of course, the woman didn't want to give her baby, and she begged the elf for something else. And the elf said, "I will not get your baby. I will not get my part of the bargain if on my next return you can tell me my name." And so the woman was perplexed. So she sent a servant to find out the name of the elf. And somewhere uh, in a tavern, sa isang beer house, sa isang inuman, somehow the servant got to know the meaning of the elf, the name of the elf. And so the servant told the woman, and when the elf came back, she was able to give the name of the elf, which is Rumpelstiltskin. And the elf got so angry that he kept stomping on the floor, and eventually the floor opened up and swallowed the elf. Okay, so that's another example of taboo words. Okay, and finally we go to euphemisms. Euphemisms are words that are used for other terms that may not be pleasant. There's a universal. There's a universal emphasis on specific events or actions. Death and toilet-related actions, as well as some body parts. Death, toilet actions, and some body parts. I'm sure you've heard of the beauty pageant contestant who said she passed away when she should have said passed out. Pass away, uh, pass away is euphemism for die. Okay, in English you say he's no longer with us, she's no longer with us, or she's now with the Lord. Or in Tagalog class, sumakabilang buhay na. So there's the emphasis of the afterlife class. There's the emphasis of the afterlife. It reflects our emphasis on the afterlife. Then we also have pumanaw. Class pumanaw pumanaw might be an old Tagalog word which means to move on. So nag-move on na siya, pumanaw na siya. He moved on. Okay? Because panaw in Visayan languages means to walk on. Okay, panaw, go. Okay, so maybe in Old Tagalog, panaw means to move on. So nag-move on na siya. Okay, and all the other euphemisms reflect the kind of emphasis that we have on a particular term. Like in English, euphemisms for toilet activities include number two, class number two, because number one is urinating, and number two is defecating. So you do number two. Or call of nature. Call of nature. Call of nature, the idea there is it's something biological, something that you can't prevent because it's biological, because it's your nature. Okay? Now, class, I don't know if you know these words. Spank the monkey, feed the dolphins, wag the dog. I don't know if you know the meaning of those euphemisms. They are euphemisms for masturbation. Okay, so euphemisms for masturbation. Spank the monkey, feed the dolphins, wag the dog, or more commonly the M word, masturbation. Okay, and class, how about this one? Indiscretion. It's a euphemism for indiscretion. It's a euphemism for adultery, particularly for a woman. Okay, indiscretion when a woman commits adultery. For a man, it's not so much an indiscretion. Okay, because the standard for women and men are culturally different. Okay, for men, for women, there's more emphasis. Okay. In fact, class, it has my another teacher of mine in UP said there are more pejoratives against women than against men. Purara, uh, kire, uh, malandi. There are more pejoratives against women in our culture than against men. Okay, mas marami at mas malala yung mga terms din. Maybe for men, you have maniac, but some people will tell you men are maniac by nature. So ganyan talaga sila. Somehow, it's excused. But for a woman to be malandi, it's inexcusable. Okay, for a woman to be burara, it's inexcusable. For a man, burara na talaga yung mga yan. Okay, so you don't really call a man as burara. Alam mo, ikaw burara ka. Not so much negative for men, but it's much more for women. Okay? So these are what we call euphemisms, and euphemisms also reflect the kind of values that we have in our culture. So these language elements, taboo words, euphemisms, keywords, these are all indicative of the culture from which they come from. Okay.